One geopolitical threat just triggered a wave of mid-market manufacturing bankruptcies across North America, and you probably haven't noticed because the media is focused on the wrong number. Everybody's watching oil prices. They're tracking the $5 or $10 swing in crude. But the real damage isn't happening in crude. It's happening in the supply chains of companies with 500 to 5,000 employees, the ones that are too large to pivot and too small to absorb a margin compression tsunami. I'm going to walk you through exactly how this works in the next 9 minutes. By the end, you'll understand why a single choke point in the Middle East is collapsing mid-market manufacturing, why upstream suppliers are consolidating at breakneck speed, and why consumer prices are about to spike in ways most people don't see coming. Let's start with the mechanism. The Strait of Hormuz moves 21% of all traded liquids on the planet. That's roughly 30% of global seaborne oil. When you see a headline about Iran threatening closure or tensions spiking, that's not an oil problem first. It's a shipping cost problem second. Here's what actually happens. Tension rises. Shipping companies immediately reprice routes. Within 48 hours, the cost to move a 40-foot container from Shanghai to Rotterdam doesn't move much. But the cost to move fuel, petrochemicals, and feedstock through the strait spikes 300 to 400% overnight. Insurance premiums alone can double. Rerouting around Africa adds 14 days to transit time and another 20% cost premium. Now, when you're a mid-sized automotive parts supplier or chemical manufacturer, your feedstock just got 40% more expensive, and your lead times just stretched from 6 weeks to 10. But here's where it gets vicious. Your customers, the large OEM, the Tier 1 suppliers, they've already locked in their supply agreements. They don't absorb that cost. You do. Let me show you the consolidation that happens next. When shipping spikes hit, suppliers operate on razor-thin margins. In automotive, it's 2 to 4%. In chemical manufacturing, maybe 5 to 7%. A 40% shipping cost spike isn't an inconvenience. It erases profitability across the board. But large suppliers can absorb it. They have cash reserves. They have negotiating power with their own suppliers. They can lock in longer contracts at higher volumes and spread the risk. Small suppliers can't. So what happens? Large suppliers start acquiring mid-market players. Fast. We've already seen this in automotive, electronics, and specialty chemicals. In the last 90 days alone, I've tracked at least 17 acquisition announcements in Tier 2 and Tier 3 supply bases in North America. Most were distressed deals. Valuations are 3x to 5x lower than they would have been 2 years ago. The companies getting acquired aren't going bankrupt. They are being consolidated. The ones that aren't attractive targets, they're going bankrupt. And this is where consumer prices actually matter to you. When you consolidate a supply base, you reduce competition. When you reduce competition, prices don't fall, they flatten or rise. We've already seen this in semiconductor supply, printed circuit board manufacturing, and specialty resins. Consolidation hasn't made these inputs cheaper. It's made them more stable but more expensive. That cost gets passed to every manufacturer downstream. Appliances, HVAC systems, automotive, industrial equipment, everything that uses these inputs just got more expensive to produce. Let me break down which sectors are most vulnerable. First, automotive parts suppliers. Tier 2 and Tier 3 suppliers with revenue under $500 million. These companies make seat frames, electrical harnesses, fuel system components, and suspension parts. They're margin compressed and customer concentrated. When a Hormuz threat hits, they have about 45 days of runway before insolvency is real. We're already seeing bankruptcies in this space, mostly smaller players, but the mid-market isn't far behind. Second, chemical and specialty materials, distributors and repackagers. These companies take bulk inputs and reprocess them for smaller manufacturers. They operate on 6 to 12% margins. A shipping spike plus inventory write-down equals bankruptcy in under 90 days. This is where consolidation is happening fastest. Third, electronics and industrial controls. Specifically, companies that source components through high-vulnerability logistics routes. If your supply chain runs through the Strait of Hormuz, and most do, you're exposed. Mid-market PCB manufacturers, control system integrators, and equipment makers in this space are getting squeezed hard. Fourth, packaging and materials handling. Plastic resin prices are directly tied to petrochemical feedstock. Hormuz tensions hit polyethylene and polypropylene supplies immediately. Mid-market packaging suppliers that can't pass costs to customers are in real trouble. Now, here's the timeline that matters. We're already in phase 1. Shipping rates are elevated. Inventory is aging. Margins are compressing. Smaller suppliers are failing. This is June through August timeline. We're in it now. Phase 2 is consolidation acceleration. August through November. Large suppliers acquire mid-market players. Prices rise on consolidated goods. This creates artificial inflation in consumer goods. We'll see appliance prices, automotive prices, and industrial equipment prices tick up 3 to 5% in categories where consolidation is happening fastest. Phase 3 is downstream impact. November through Q2 next year. Manufacturers that depend on these consolidated suppliers face higher input costs. They either absorb it, which kills their margin, or pass it to consumers, which kills their volume. Companies choose volume over margin, which triggers layoffs and production cuts. This is where unemployment ticks up in manufacturing regions. Phase 4 is the feedback loop. When mid-market manufacturers cut production, they cut orders from suppliers. Larger suppliers already consolidated those players, so they're carrying excess capacity. Pricing wars start. Some of the consolidators take losses. A few face bankruptcy themselves if they overpaid for acquisitions. This whole cycle, from Hormuz tension to consumer price impact to layoff acceleration, typically runs 8 to 12 months. We're about 4 months in. So what actually happens if the Strait of Hormuz closes? It won't stay closed. Military and political pressure would force it open within weeks, but those weeks would be catastrophic. Oil would spike to $120 to $150 per barrel. Shipping costs would spike 600 to 800%. Entire supply chains would fragment. Within 30 days, you'd see manufacturing shutdowns across North America and Europe. Within 90 days, you'd see wave failures in mid-market suppliers. Within 6 months, you'd see significant consumer price inflation, not 3 to 4% annual. We're talking 15 to 25% spikes in affected categories. That's scenario planning, not prediction. But it shows you why this matters. Here's what you need to watch. 1. Shipping rate indices. Watch the Baltic Exchange and Shanghai Containerized Freight Index. When routes through the strait spike 40% or more, that's your signal that consolidation phase is accelerating. 2. And announcements in Tier 2 and Tier 3 supply bases. Track automotive, chemical, and electronics sectors specifically. Distressed valuations mean financial stress is real. 3. Mid-market manufacturer earnings. When suppliers report, watch for margin compression language. That's the canary in the coal mine. 4. Consumer price data in specific categories. Appliances, vehicles, industrial goods. When consolidation shows up, prices there tick up first. 5. Manufacturing employment. Specifically in automotive supplier hubs and chemical manufacturing regions. This is where layoffs hit when consolidation completes. The broader point, geopolitical risk isn't just about oil headlines. It's about supply chain mechanics, consolidation incentives, and margin compression. It flows through to consumer prices, employment, and your wallet in ways that take months to show up in the data. This is what Market Pulse Report exists to track. If you're